I said, you don't have authority unless you're under authority. You may be given a responsibility. This may even be at your church or at work. You're given a job to do, but you need to be given authority. I give you the authority to do this job. That means you're expected to delegate. You're responsible for this. And you know that you've got that backing because you were given authority. Well, even in prayer, and this is especially true when we're praying beyond our own homes, our own families, when we begin to pray in areas of our church, maybe your workplace, maybe your community, and especially in the nation, the fullest blessing is going to be there when we have been given that authority, that blessing, that covering, that agreement by those who are recognized spiritual authorities. Now, some examples of this. In the Old Testament, in Numbers 27, Moses was leading the entire nation of Israel, but it got to the point where he couldn't do it all. So the Lord said to Moses, "Take Joshua, the son of Nun, a man in whom is the Spirit," which I thought was interesting because already it was evident that Joshua had the Spirit of God in him. But the Lord said to Moses, "Take Joshua and lay your hand on him." So this was an Old Testament. They're already laying hands on people. "Lay your hand on him and have him stand before Eleazar the priest and the entire assembly." Now, Eleazar was a recognized spiritual authority to the people. So he said, "Have him stand before Eleazar and the entire assembly and commission him in their presence. Give him some of your authority so the whole Israelite community will obey him." So this is a very real example that authority was given to Joshua by Moses to do what the Lord had commanded. And we know that Joshua was the one that ended up taking the nation into the promised land. Now in Acts, in the New Testament, we see the same thing. Acts 13, while they were worshiping the Lord and fasting, and this is the apostles, the disciples, the Holy Spirit said, "Set apart for me Barnabas and Saul for the work to which I've called them." Then after fasting and praying, they laid their hands on them and sent them off. So for Barnabas and Paul, they were sent off by the spiritual authorities. They had their blessing. Before they even went, they knew they had that backing. They had that support. We support you. We give you that authority to go out and to do what the Lord has commanded you to do. And this is a huge thing that we see in prayer. I see it the most in church because my husband and I, we pastor, and we have intercessory prayer meetings. And even as I've gone around to different churches, have seen where when this is not happening and there's a disconnect between, say, the intercessors and the leadership of the church, problems can arise and the enemy gets in because the intercessors can sometimes begin to work on their own and begin to get things on their own, and they begin to pray. But if they're not communicating with and under the covering of the leadership of the church, then the enemy gets in and confusion and discord arises. And so we really encourage, the leadership of the church, especially the pastor, to have that heart of prayer, to keep that communication, to encourage the intercessors, to bless them, to know what they're praying for. Because the intercessors are there to serve the vision of the house. They're not the primary vision carriers of the church, the pastor is. And so this is in a very practical way. The Lord wants us to be healthy in that, to have the fullest backing of our prayers in a church. And obviously in the community, in the nation, what the enemy is trying to do, we read it in the headlines, and this is the rebellion against authority. This is the spirit that's just in the land. And I believe that we as a church can overturn that by how we respond to the authorities in our lives, especially in the church. Even with all the brokenness, even with all the disappointments, the hurt and the woundings that we might get from different leaders in churches, this is where the Lord is testing us. Can you bless those in leadership? You're supposed to pray for them. You may not agree with them, but can you bless them? Can you come under, their authority, the office that they hold? And because that's where the blessing, that's where the Lord commands the blessing, is when we're in that oneness and that unity. And I really believe if the church can get a hold of this and that we can learn the blessing of being in agreement and being under authority, I believe it can displace this spirit that's trying to come in even to the nation of rebellion against authority. Because we as believers, we should be the ones that are setting the standard in that and recognizing, no, God has established, Romans 13, He has established authorities. And, maybe we don't like them. Maybe we don't agree with them. That's why we're supposed to pray for them. Okay, but we can recognize, God, you're in charge here, but we want to submit to what you're doing here.